Let's start by talking about the good stuff. This game has some really great loading screens, and EA were good enough to let us see a lot of them last weekend. There's one. Oh boy, if you like loading screens, you're in for a treat. Okay, so a rough launch, but let's try to describe the experience outside of that. Anthem is an upcoming looter shooter developed by the legendary BioWare and published by the famous Electronic Arts. So think Destiny or Warframe and you'll get the idea. The developers say you'll be able to team up with up to 3 other players in cooperative adventures that reward both combined effort and individual skill. So this is a relief to hear, as exclusive or unshared loot in this type of game can be a fun killer. You control an Iron Man style suit called a Javelin, which gives you the ability to fly, hover and take crazy amounts of damage. Honestly, it's really cool, but more on that later. It currently doesn't feature any PvP, but the developers have outlined how that might work if it was introduced. But needless to say, if you're after a mostly PvP based experience, this may not be the shooter for you. This weekend saw the limited availability of a VIP demo to those who donated enough to the gods in advance of the game come out, or who had an EA Access subscription. Those who did not pre-order, EA calls you norms by the way, can enjoy the open beta from February 1st to February 3rd, so at the time of recording, that's next weekend. This is in advance of a full release on February 22nd. Sadly for many folks, much of last weekend's demo was spent in infinite loading screens, followed by the fix of Alt F4 to kill the game on PC. I believe similar experience was had on consoles also. Pretty poor launch of the demo for people who had paid extra to be able to access it. EA did put out a detailed statement on what went wrong, and I understand that for a lot of folks the experience did get better over the weekend. For me, the infinite loading screen issue persisted throughout the whole experience. It never really went away, and according to the article from EA, this was due to the problem being exacerbated in the real world, where differences with the player's ISPs and home networks introduce new behavior. That's a verbatim quote from them. So a little bit vague. Let's hope that this doesn't become a not our problem issue where folks' ISPs are blamed. Let's also hope that this poor VIP demo experience has not colored potential customers' opinions. Remember, you could actually buy VIP access for about £2, so not everybody in this VIP demo had necessarily pre-ordered. Right, but is it fun? I can hear you scream like maniacs. Well, just sit down and get a glass of water, we'll talk it over. Take my experience as being built on a foundation of 80 plus hours in Destiny 2, 70 hours plus in Warframe, and about 90-ish hours in The Division. And I've pre-ordered Division 2 also, so clearly I like the looter shooter concept. So how does Anthem satisfy my fetish for better pants, essential cosmetics, and increasing numbers in an upward trajectory? It pushes my buttons. Not trying to be intentionally creepy there, but let's just leave that in. We won't be editing that out. So at first I did sigh a little when I started shooting at bullet sponge enemies with white and sometimes yellow numbers above their heads, or depending on where you shot them. But that is the looter shooter experience, and I do know that. But I may be coming at this with somewhat jaded eyes, remembering those nearly 250 hours spent in other similar games that I mentioned. However, after about 30 minutes or so, it became clear that there is a lot of depth to your Javelin Suit, and I don't just mean the ability to make it pink all over. Philistines, go and play COD if that's your thing. There are many slots to fill and items to tweak. It's not up there with Warframe levels of complexity, but there's certainly enough to make you feel like your suit is truly yours. Learning what your ultimate does and what your other abilities can do and how they can be used in combos is in fact very rewarding. Gameplay, so what can we say here? It's what you'd expect. Fetch quests interspersed with cutscenes and going to talk to some kind of key figure. Before you can fetch what you need, you'll need to engage in some exploration of what feels like a pretty open area that you can fly or walk through. It feels like that you could break off at any point though and do something else also, which could be good or bad depending on whether you are playing with friends or some random folks via matchmaking. Speaking of other players, I played on PC and I never once heard anyone use VoIP or even type in the chat. I guess this is no different to any other game of the genre, and it is still early days. There will be mini bosses and bosses and hordes of enemies in between. I won't say that they have radically rewritten this facet of the genre. It still feels rewarding and well paced. Do bear in mind that I had to manually kill the entire game after almost every mission due to the input loading error, so this may account for my somewhat lackluster level of excitement describing the gameplay. Flow is important, and constantly having to exit the game and restart it to continue certainly had an impact in my opinion. In summary, it's a bog standard looter shooter, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, and there's still lots more to see before we make a final call on this. Controls. Movement around a starting hub is frustrating with no ability to run available, but I'm assuming that this is something that won't be the same in the finished product. If it is, getting around these hubs is going to be tedious. Let's talk about the big deal item though, your Javelin Suit of course. This Iron Man style suit has a number of jets attached, allowing one to fly, hover or run at speed. There's a bar that once in the red causes your Javelin to overheat and you'll drop to the ground in a somewhat controllable manner. It seems that this is just one of the many things though that can be tweaked and changed to your liking. The Javelin controls are kind of funny. At first the control system while in flight feels both overly sensitive but also sluggish in a weird kind of contradiction. However, after a while you just adapt to it and it feels just like how a chunk of unaerodynamic metal would behave, and ultimately mastering it is very rewarding. We will assume that many of the accents used in the game are placeholder currently. Either that or this universe has a lot of American folks in it. Now, many demos or early access games do have placeholder voice acting, so I'm not overly bothered or worried by this. I'm sure it's going to be changed. There is a whole world out there, so let's hope BioWare goes the extra mile with such an important item as the characters that you interact with and how they sound. The music was oddly missing at times. Sometimes the loading screen would have it, other times not. Same with menu screens and hub areas. Again, I assume this is not representing the finished product. Where the music was present, it was the expected orchestral, cinematic, instrumental style. I didn't notice any music during the missions until you encountered a mini boss or similar event was starting. Now, I actually liked this. I preferred the sounds of the environment, but again, this may be placeholder and not finished product. Visuals. Anthem uses the Frostbite 3 engine, which is the same one used in Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, both of the Star Wars Battlefront games, and in fact also the recent FIFA games and quite a few others. So we all know how good those games look, and at least on my PC they're pretty well optimized. Even dropping settings to low looks great. The environments look vast, at the same time detailed with no pop-in noticed on high settings. My GTX 1070 on a G-Sync monitor maintained an average of around 70 FPS. This is similar to performance I get in Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 1, so those games might be a good reference for you for expected performance. So let's sum up the experience. A rocky start for sure, but ultimately we have to ask, was it fun? And for the brief period we had to try it, it was. If, like me, obsessive number increasing wrapped in an open world and enjoyed with friends is your bag, then Anthem may satisfy. Anthem has promised anyone that logged in to the VIP demo full access to 4 Javelins in the upcoming open beta, which again is next weekend, February 1st to 3rd. Also a free skin for your suit in the full game should you choose to purchase. Let's hope for a better open beta experience then. I know I'm looking forward to seeing BioWare bring back the greatness that we all know they can. So in closing, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I'm interested to know your thoughts on how the VIP demo went for you, especially regarding what platform you played on. For me it was PC, but I wonder how it went on console. I hear Xbox players had a lot of problems. Has the technical difficulties with last weekend's demo influenced your decision to purchase the game or not? It would be interested in hearing your thoughts in the comments down below. And thanks once again for watching.